Not feeling inspired? Not feeling motivated? Well, today's topic is how to stay motivated as a writer. If you don't know who I am, I'm Joe Solari, and this is the business of writing. Today we're going to talk with Jonathan Yañez, a best-selling science fiction writer. But we're not going to be talking about science fiction. We're going to be talking about how to stay motivated. Jonathan has just written his first nonfiction book called Get It Done, hard-hitting motivation for authors. This isn't some fluffy book where we talk about aspiring to goals. What he gets into is how, through lots and lots of mistakes, he persevered and built a full-time writing career doing what he loves. Let's get into that interview. Hey everybody, it's Joe Solari here with the Business of Writing, and today's guest is Jonathan Yañez. How you doing, Jonathan?
Great, Joe. Thanks for having me on.
So we met at 20 Books. Actually, I think I met your wife first. Is that right?
I think so too. I think you guys had already got connected maybe through Facebook or even a phone call before, something like that. And then we met you at the conference in Vegas. And now a year later, that conference is right around the corner again.
Yeah. I've got to get my notes together for that one.
Yeah, you're going to be busy.
I'm a very busy boy there, but that's good. I'm really excited about it. My wife's coming out this time, so she's. If you think I'm social, wait till you meet her. She's like the mayor. So the reason I wanted to have you on, I noticed that you just released your first. This is your first nonfiction work, right?
Right, first nonfiction book. I have 30-some fiction books. I always get like gray zone if I'm supposed to count anthologies and short stories count and stuff like that, but I have 30-some fiction novels, and I really wanted to write my first nonfiction to help other authors out.
All right, so let's start out with just telling a little bit about before we get too deep in the nonfiction, because I think you'll probably hit on some of that as we talk. But tell us about your journey, 30-something books. How many million words is that?
I don't need, you know what? I'm horrible at keeping track of exactly how many books, exactly how many words.
Okay.
I kind of work on the mentality, like the most important thing that I'm working on is right now, it's happening right now. Yes, when I do finish a book, I celebrate good work. I think it's important to celebrate your wins. Mm-hmm. But I mean, celebration for me at least is very short term because hey, nobody cares about what you did do. They cared about what you're doing now.
True. So tell us a little bit about how long ago it was you got started and a little bit of your path to where you are now and how that influenced the book.
Gotcha. So I graduated from college with my English degree and I knew I wanted to write. But as you and I both know, writers don't make a whole lot of money day one. You got to write your book, you got to learn, you got to work on your craft. So I needed to find a job right out the gate. So a place called Enterprise Rent-A-Car hired me, and I was there doing sales day in and day out, and I never lost track of wanting to write a book. Mm-hmm. I would always do it. When I would get frustrated at work, I would turn to writing. When I'm like, hey man, I really need to get my author career started, I would turn to writing. So let's fast forward 5 years of that. So I'm 5 years now. I'm at the John Wayne Airport managing that station. And I finally just got to a breaking point, Joe.
I may have rented a car from you.
You might have. I got to a point where I just saw what my boss was doing, and I saw their job day in and day out, and I didn't want it. I realized if I'm not working to try to get to the next level, then what am I doing here? Because my boss was making a little bit more money than I was, but they were working 6 days a week. They were putting in hours, 60, maybe even 60 plus hours a week. So I would not recommend this to anybody, but I quit my job with no goal in mind, just to write. I cashed in my 401k. So there was no safety nets or anything like that. I was married by then now, so you can imagine my wife was super excited about me just quitting my job and cashing in the 401k. But I started writing my first book, and in the meantime, I needed some money because, again, like what we were talking about before, you don't make a whole lot of money starting off as an author. Mm-hmm. So I always loved working out at the gym. I was there, 4 or 5 days a week anyway. So I started talking to the personal trainers there. What did I need to do to become a personal trainer? So they told me. I took all the tests and certifications, started personal training part-time while I wrote full-time.
Okay.
So my first book was called The Beast Within. It's kind of like an urban fantasy. Are you familiar with Wolverine from X-Men?
Of course.
Just think of a family of Wolverines.
Okay.
That's basically what it was. So that series was called the Elite Series. I wrote that first book, and then I started on the second while I was pitching the first. And this is, 7 years ago. So I hadn't been fully invested into independent publishing yet. I was still kind of on the fence whether I should go traditional or independent. So I thought to myself, if I knew what I knew now, Joe, I would have just independently published it and done it myself, right? But, 7 years ago, just starting off, I had no idea.
Yeah. And just as an aside, like, so back when you were in school, I assume that like none of your professors were even talking about like indie, like.
Yeah. Nobody knew who that was. That was like some unicorn that maybe somebody in passing thought that they had seen at some point, and then never talked about
Things get really bad. Maybe you do that.
Yeah, exactly, for sure. So I started personal training, worked on my first book, and then I started sending out query letters, right? Because again, I didn't know that I could. I didn't know that I should, for me, independently publish. I still was kind of on the fence, so I started looking for an agent or a publisher, and I would send out these query letters. I'm so glad I never have to write another query letter again, by the way. Those were like a Dementor from Harry Potter.
Yeah.
It was just like suck your soul, man.
Yeah.
So I did 20 query letters at a time. I would send 20 out and then wait to hear back to see if I get on any bites. And then I would send out another 20 and another 20. So 100. I sent out 100 query letters to different publishing houses and agents. And I just told myself, I had the mentality that, hey, I'm going to pitch this first book 100 times. And if nobody picks it up, I'm going to write the second book and I'm going to pitch that 100 times. And if nobody picks it up, I'm going to write the third book and pitch that 100 times. Like, defeat wasn't an option for me. It was going to happen. It was just a matter of time.
Yeah.
I was like Yoda. I was like a Mexican version of Yoda. Do or do not. There is no try, right? So there was only one way this was going to end. It was going to end with me getting the contract. So I was fortunate enough where I sent out that batch, because I was sending out those query letters in batches of 20. So the number 80 to 100, I sent out that batch. And that's when I got my first yes. And then they asked if they could sign The Beast Within and then sign it to a series. They wanted me to write an entire series. So I was like, heck yeah, I can write an entire series. So I did that. And then I traditionally published for a few years. And then I I did independently publish, but I didn't know what I was doing yet. I didn't have the tools or the resources I need.
What year was this?
So let's see, independent publishing was probably 4 years ago.
Okay.
But I didn't put all my eggs in one basket. I kind of just like threw it out there, which is not the right thing to do. You need to have a clear plan. You need to write to genre. You need to, have a battle plan like a general has before they go into war. They don't just like run into war. They have a plan and a clear idea of what they're going to be doing. So I did not have that at the time. So I didn't see a whole lot of results from my independent publishing work. So I kind of went back and forth. I would write a few books for my traditional publishing house. Then I would try to do some independent work to see if it would work. And again, I was just like, throwing shots in the dark, hoping something would hit.
Similar genre or all over the place? Or?
I was all over the place, man. Joe, I have no shame in telling you, I have made every single mistake in the book. Like everything that you could say, you tell your clients, I'm sure, not to do, I was that kid doing it. And people were pointing to me, be like, yeah, don't be doing what this kid over here is doing. It's not going to work. So I saw my first big successful month. It wasn't until actually last year, early 2017, where I really buckled down, because my work ethic wasn't the problem. It was the knowledge that was the problem. I didn't have the clear writing to market. I didn't have, the professional covers that you need. I didn't have the killer blurbs that you needed. I didn't have any of that. So last year at the beginning of the year, we really buckled down and just like laser focus. You know that saying that you don't know what you don't know?
Yeah.
That was me. So at the beginning of last year, we switched it up, invested more money into our company, which is another thing that I would recommend to people, because before I was getting, my small royalty checks in from the publishing house or my own independent stuff. And I was like, oh, great, look it. We made some money. And then, we'd go spend it on, I don't know, mortgage or utilities. I wasn't investing back into my company. So that's another big thing that we changed to be successful. So early, beginning of last year, I saw my first 5-figure month. And then end of last year, I saw my first, 4-figure month early last year, 5-figure month end of last year. And it's just been rolling and building now that we're not only working hard, we're taking all the appropriate steps to work our business correctly.
And what do you think it was that helped you like make those changes? Was there resources that you found, or a person, or?
Joe, like I was a mess. You would have looked at me before and be like, what is this kid doing? Like, he has a good heart, but what is this kid doing? So I can't really say there was one thing. There was a lot of things that we had to change and we had to do correctly. Kind of like what I touched on before about writing to market.
Yeah.
Picking out, like knowing what your readers want and giving that, delivering on that. It was, again, investing in better covers. It was my wife coming on board and helping me write my blurbs, because she works in advertising and has that copywriting experience. It was investing in Amazon and Facebook advertising. It was putting more professional, better laid emails together for my fans to engage with, creating a Facebook group. That's another thing that we did. Like the list just goes on and on. And the people I tell now who I talk to, I tell them, like, I wish I could tell you it's just one thing. Like, fix this one thing and it'll be better. But the honest truth is it's working really hard and then doing a lot of things right.
Well, and my experience with kind of your story is through your wife and her contacting me, and she seems to be a similar mindset of like, we're going to figure this out. Like, well, so like she drilled me as far as like, what do I need to do with my business? What am I doing wrong? What I'm doing this. So I was very impressed with your business partner in this and how dedicated she was to figuring out the business mechanics while you're writing.
Yeah. Have you ever seen Lethal Weapon with Danny Glover and Mel Gibson?
Yeah.
She's my Danny Glover.
Okay.
I'm more the Mel Gibson, you know what I mean? Like going up on the ledge with the guy, telling the guy at the ledge, hey, we'll jump together. Let's jump together. It's fine. And she's like trying to talk us off the ledge, like, hey, we need a plan. This is what we need to do.
Yeah.
So for sure, my business turned around when she was involved. And that's just with the clear mindset, the clear plan. Again, the advertising helped out a lot. The copyright, the professional made blurbs, all that really helped our business turn around.
So, the reason we're here is you've got this new book, Get It Done. Tell me what you're trying to distill for the Jonathan that could have had this book 5 years ago.
Yeah, for sure. I wish I could meet that guy. I would just shake my head and be like, what were you doing? So just over the last, year to 2 years now, that success has really found me. I've seen so many people who were in my position before. And unlike me, my family was always really supportive. My wife has always been really supportive. A lot of the authors I meet now, a lot of them don't have that support either from their spouse or from their family members. And it just amazed me, just one conversation with them, how much you could brighten their day and turn their mindset around by sharing a little bit of your own story and just tell them like, hey, you can do this. I had a talk with another author and he told me that nobody had ever taken the time to have a conversation with them over the phone, to be invested in him and cared about his career. And I just saw that happening over and over again. I was like, I need to write a book. I want to write, I'm out writing, sci-fi books now, but I needed to take a month off to write a nonfiction book so I could reach out and help other people. And I really tapped into my personal training background because I still do that now because I enjoy it so much. I don't work for any gyms. What I did is when I quit personal training, I had a couple clients who reached out to me and said, hey, we really enjoy working out with you. Could we just pay you to work out with us? And I'm like, heck yeah, I'm going to be at the gym anyway, working out because I enjoy it. So might as well. So I still work out 6 times a week. And the same stuff that I tell them, I'm telling other authors, right? It's like a lot of it is in your mind. What kind of attitude are you going to have to get to that next level? And then I tell them again, like either whether you're an author or whether you're lifting weights at the gym, it's discipline. It's discipline. It's a routine. It's a pattern. And success will find you. You will see results, but it has to find you at work. It's not going to find you sitting on the couch. It's not going to find you binge watching Netflix. Not to hate on that, because, I love watching Netflix shows and I love to sit on the couch. Don't get me wrong. But work has to come first if you're serious about your business. So that's what the book is about, just encouraging authors to get it done. You and I were talking before, and I was telling you that a lot of the times when I give authors advice, it's not what they want to hear, but it's what they need to hear. And a lot of my clients, a lot of people that I talk to writing a book, they'll be like, oh, I didn't hit my word count today. I'm so sorry, blah, blah, blah. And I tell them, like, I don't want you to be sorry. I'm not here for you to tell me you're sorry. I want you to be better. And I tell them too, like, the day's not over yet. If we're talking late at night and you haven't hit your workout, what do you do? What are you doing now? You need to get off the phone. No, you need to go to work. Yeah, you're not defeated. You're not defeated until you give up.
Mm. And that's, we were talking before, is with a lot of authors, sometimes my business advice is super simple. You don't have a product yet. Write the book.
Yeah, no, I totally know what you mean. You bring up another good point, even when you're talking, just like how you are helping coach these other authors who are already doing well. They're already making six figures. And that goes back to another point I was thinking about, that the most successful people I know, from, Tom Brady to The Rock, they have trainers, they have coaches in their corner, and, they're multimillionaires. So at every level of the game, you need to surround yourself with those people who you trust, who maybe might not tell you what you want to hear, but who are telling you what you need to hear to be successful.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot to that. And I think that that's part of it, is an understanding that even if you are good at what you do, you can always be better.
Yeah, we're always learning.
We mentioned a little bit about Jennifer working with you. Let's talk a little bit about, because there's other authors that are doing this, where you are a husband and wife team. Like, you've got strengths, she's got strengths, and you figured out that, there's opportunities for you guys to build this life together. And whatever you want to talk about, I mean, there's good and bad in that, right?
Yeah, for sure. We're definitely yin and yang. I love superheroes, so I'm going to reference them again. But there's a part in the first Avengers movie when Captain America is talking to Iron Man, and Captain America looks at Iron Man. He said, "Hey, we need a plan of attack." And Iron Man looks back at Captain America and he says, "I have a plan. Attack." And that's Jen and I in a nutshell. I'm Iron Man. She's Captain America. So our business has kind of taken on two aspects. One is that we wrote a series together called Gateway to the Galaxy.
Okay.
So we came up with the ideas together. We outlined the plan where we wanted to go. I took the first pass, so just kind of like that blunt instrument, just getting the work done. And then she came in behind me with more of like a fine-tooth comb. Mm-hmm. And she added in more detail. She fleshed out the characters, the backstories, all this. And then we published that book together. And it's an ongoing series. I'm working on the last book now. We published it in March of this year. So that's been super cool to work with her, not just on the business side, but on the creative side as well.
Yeah, I didn't know she was writing.
Yeah, so she's in an anthology coming up, and she's doing that on the side. I don't know how she does it, because she's phasing out of her full-time job now to write on the side, but her main focus is our business. And we have a 2-year-old.
Well, yeah, that's the other thing, right?
Yeah. So I'm up at 5 o'clock in the morning, getting word counts done before the sun rises, before my daughter wakes up. Because when she's ready to go, it's My Pretty Pony and, unicorn rides during the day until she goes down for a nap when I try to get some more work done. And then I'm training at the gym in the afternoons. So it's a crazy life, but I wouldn't change it for anything else, because I can see so much growth and so much development just over these last 2 years.
Well, and you mentioned that before we got on, it just the idea that the arc of your career is now your wife is going to be able to leave her job to focus on this. So two things. One, kind of talking about what that's like for you, but also, I mean, that's a paradigm shift, right? The two of you are now going to have 100% focus on that business. What does that mean for what you guys are going to do?
Yeah, so I mean, we did sales projections for next year. We have different businesses that we've started. One of them is called the Archers Rest Society. So if you go to archersrestsummit.com, we're putting on a small conference just for some 6- and 7-figure authors to get around. No, panels or no, speeches per se, but just to create a strong pack around you, right? Just to surround yourself with people who are similar minded, so you can help each other, through this next year or 2 years as you are going against different obstacles, and just a networking event. So we started that company with, Chris Fox, Richard Fox, Nick Cole, and Jason Onspach. Okay. Those are the 6 of us, and then myself and Jen. 6 of us started that. And then also having her on board to handle all the advertising is awesome. I have nothing but respect for authors who are writing a book a month and who are also doing the advertising for their business and the blurbs and all that stuff, because I have Jen, and I would not be where I am today without her, because she's taken over all that stuff. She does all my cover works. with the different artists and illustrators, make sure that we have them when we need them. And again, that Facebook and Amazon advertising, don't get me wrong, Joe, I understand it. But I mean, I don't know if you put me in front of a computer and like create a killer ad. I'm not 100% sure that I could deliver on that. I can give you something. I can give you something.
Yeah.
She can give you some great products. So that's been really cool. And then she's also been helping some other authors on the side as well. Just doing some consulting for whether it's like they need to create blurbs or they need to put up their website or they have questions about their own covers and stuff like that. So I've been super proud of her. She's really grabbed the bull by the horns and ran with it. When she was invested in our company, she's all in.
Cool. And you guys, do you actually sit down and do a written plan? And
yeah, so it's you have kids, don't you, Joe?
What's that?
You have kids, right?
Yeah, I have twin boys that are just turned 14.
Oh yeah, man. So I don't need to tell you. I mean, finding those times of quiet are few and far between.
Yeah.
So if we need to, sometimes we'll have like the babysitter come and we'll go out for a date just to spend some time. And then she asks me all the time, she's like, are we going on a date or is this a business meeting? Because it's inevitable, that business stuff always comes up. So yeah, but having a clear written plan of where we want to be over the next year, or even that month, what our goals are for that month. When I was working in my sales background, I heard one of my bosses talking about vision, communication, and knowledge. Those are the three things that every leader needs. You need the vision to see where you want to go, where you're headed. You need the knowledge to know how to get there. And then you need communication so you can tell your team around you, hey, this is what we're doing to reach this goal. So I've kept that close to my heart over all these years. And that's important to us when we're talking to, us as business owners, or when we're talking to our illustrators, or when we're talking to our editor, like, hey, this is what needs to happen. This is what we want. This is where we're going.
No, that's a great point. I think that for business owners, and again, this isn't just authors, but I think it happens a little more with authors. They tend to get disappointed because they don't communicate the plan, right? So you can't get upset with your illustrator if you didn't make it very clear as to your execution that you were planning on having these books out X, Y, and Z date, right?
Yeah. I see that all the time too.
Right. And so I was meeting with a client the other day and just saying, like, this scope we're writing is, in my head, I knew it was because she needed to get her ideas around what she was trying to do. But it's like, that's not just important for you, but it's important for your vendor so that, you say you want a container, right? And you're imagining a blue box and they show up with an orange garbage bag. And now you're pissed, right? It's like you needed to scope out. It needed to be rectangular, rigid, and a cool color, right? And you probably would have gotten a closer deal or said exactly you wanted a blue box, but not a container, right?
Yeah, you're exactly right.
And that it can be just that simple, right? But getting it written down and in front of people helps so you don't have to keep regurgitating these projects. And
for sure, yeah. To your point, what I've learned along the way too, I mean, I've learned a lot because like I said, I made every mistake in the book. But one of the things I learned is, to your point, when you have an illustrator, be specific of what you really want. But then outside of that, let the professionals do what the professionals do best.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, be specific if there are musts on your cover, but also if you have a good illustrator, you can trust them to do good work.
Sure. Then they'll surprise you. You'll be like, oh, wow, I never would have thought of that. That's great.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, in fact, I was talking to Richard Fox we were talking about the comic book that they're working on, and similar thing kind of came up, is that there's some things for him that are like, hey, it has to be just this way. And it's whether it's the words somebody says or how something looks, it's because he knows how that plays out, 20 books down the road. Right? Other stuff, he just lets them have their latitude.
Right, for sure. And there's some freedom in that too when you give them their latitude. Like if you don't hold on, with white knuckles, you can just trust them that they're going to give you your must-haves, but then outside of that they're going to be able to do good work and deliver. Then there's freedom in that, so you don't have to worry about it, and you can move on to whatever you're working on next.
Yeah. Well, you made me think of something. This, maybe you've addressed this in your book, or maybe this is something that'll come out of your experience from personal training, but What about the folks that can't let anything go?
Yeah. So with those folks, I know what you're talking about. I've run across a few of them in my life. With those folks, I tell them it's a process. So I'm going to go back to personal training, and we're going to say, I have a client who says, there's no way I could do a pull-up. I can't do it. I can't. There's no way. And they won't get rid of that mindset. So we just start slow, right? We start doing other exercises that are going to strengthen their back. Mm-hmm. And we're not going to ask them to try to do a pull-up, for months down the road, but it's a slow process as we grow as people. And that's the same thing as authors, right? If an author says, I can't release my first book because, I'm too scared of how it's going to be received. There's always a reason why people live in fear. So it's kind of like digging down deeper and understanding why, like what's the root of this problem? Why can't you let go? Why can't you press publish? And a lot of it has to do with what other people think of them. So it's, realizing like, hey, the best thing that you can ever do for yourself is when you look at the mirror, that's the only competition you have. That's it. Like for me, I can look at my mirror. I'm trying to be better than the guy I was yesterday. And I'm just answering to my wife and my daughter. That's it. If my wife and my daughter, this is going to be pretty dramatic. I told my wife this before. I'm like, hey, as long as you and my daughter's name is Josephine, so I call her Joe. Okay. As long as you and Joe are okay with what I'm doing, the rest of the world can burn. Yeah. And I don't really mean that, of course, right? But I'm just saying, hey, as long as you're good with yourself and you can look yourself in the mirror and you're working to be better than that person yesterday and the people who are around you, then it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. That you have some experience with is momentum. I think that's also something with, like, even if you do something sort of half-assed and wrong, at least it's done and there's some inertia. Yeah, for sure. So when we were talking about getting this Archers Rest Summit going for authors, we reached out to some big names, and all the big names said yes. And I'm like, I had all this motivation, right? All this inertia, like, hey, we're getting all these yes. Everybody who we want to come to this meeting saying yes. Maybe I'm not shooting high enough. So then I went out and like, hey, you know what I mean? Because I'm so used to getting told no back in my sales career, back when I was sending out all those query letters. I was so used to saying no that it doesn't even faze me anymore. It's just an opportunity that I took, and you can be proud of yourself for taking that opportunity. And if the door was closed, it wasn't meant to be, you move on to the next one. So when we were getting all those yeses, I'm like, man, maybe I'm not shooting high enough. I need to start talking to Netflix and Hulu and stuff like that and start pitching my book. And then so I started doing that. And of course, they're not saying yes right away too. But it's that inertia, that momentum that you're getting, that you keep on building. And when you surround yourself with strong people, they motivate you to keep that inertia, to keep going. As I'm surrounding myself with people who are making 7 figures now, and they've figured out the ebook game. They're going into audiobooks. They're going into graphic novels, like what you're talking about with Richard Fox. It motivates you to keep that inertia, to keep on going, that there's only person holding you back is you and the chances that you're willing to take. Yeah. Well, it's kind of a similar story. So the last business I was involved in, we raised $21 million in 18 months. Wow, that's awesome, man! And congratulations. Yeah, it was a hell of a ride. Yeah, and we started with just an idea. I mean, it was literally myself and my business partner with a PowerPoint presentation, and we had an idea where we thought we were going to get the money from, and then literally it was him and I. We sat down one afternoon and we built a list of, we're going to call all these people. We're going to call all these people and we're going to ask them for a meeting, and we're going to fly. We're going to fly to Houston. We're going to fly to California. We're going to fly to these places where the money was at, and we're going to see about getting these meetings, right? And, 2 things that came out of that. One is some of the meetings we got were amazing meetings. And it wasn't the one we set up. It was like, yeah, I looked at it, and I'm not interested in this, but I know a guy, so I gave it to him, and got us into even bigger places. And the moral of the story is we got the money, but it wasn't any of the guys we thought it was going to be. Yeah, and you wouldn't have gotten any of that if you didn't put yourself out there and willing to do the work. Well, that's it, right? It was like, we got to make the list. We got to call the people. We got to go show up. Like, we really forced the issue. It was like, when we set up our first trip to Houston,
we didn't have any meetings, right? Like it was, we could have been stuck sitting there, I don't know, playing video games in the hotel, but it was like, hey, we're going to be in Houston this week for our meetings. You got time for us. And it was like, you push that and they're like, yeah, I can get you in. And then once you had one meeting, you could talk to the other guy. And there ended up being this one deal where the one day we just were in the same building going up and down between floors because that was where all the venture capital guys were.
That has to be a chapter in your book comes out that explains how you did all this. That's a great chapter in your book. Just been in the same building all day, going up and down the elevator.
It was planned, and then we get this call while we're driving around, and it happens to be a guy. I won't mention names, but at one point he was Governor Bush's assistant. He was like high up oil and gas dude in a huge firm. And we were too small for what he was doing, but he wanted to meet with us. It was like, I'm in the building, so why don't you just come and see me? I don't know if it's something I'll be interested in. But and he was a super nice guy, and I think the interesting thing about that was he was never too big to meet with anybody because he didn't know if the two dinglings from Chicago might have something for him.
That's a great example of, we were talking about this before too. We talked about a lot before, but we were talking about opportunities coming from places that you wouldn't even suspect. Yeah. So like, I'm willing to talk and reach out to, if authors want to reach out to me about, how do I write my first book, to somebody else who maybe has, a higher end question because they've been doing this for years and years. But I think when you give back to people in unexpected and awesome ways, that comes around to you.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like we said, we were talking about this before. I can give instances where there are things that have, this thing that we did with this oil and gas business came out of an opportunity I saw, relationships that I had from previous businesses, and what was going on in the market. And all that stuff happened was very disparate. I mean, I was the one connection point. It took years for that to come to where it needed to be. And at that time, that was what I was supposed to be doing. And once it happens, then you can see how it comes together. But before that, it was like, I don't know it was a nice guy that I talked to, but that was it. Right.
Yeah. And for sure, that whole story just goes to show that you guys were committed. But there's only, like with my book, there's only one thing that was going to happen. I was going to get a publishing deal. With you guys were going to go, it was Houston, you said? You're going to go to Houston anyway? Yeah, you're going to make it happen. And I see that with so many authors, that if their first series doesn't hit, or if their second series doesn't hit, they get down on themselves. And I tell them, like, you've learned so much, even if you're not making, 6 or 7 figures like you want to. Like, yes, I want that for you, but think about how much you've learned by failing, right? Because when you fail, you learn. Yeah. You pick yourself back up and you try again, and you learn some more, and you learn some more, and you learn some more. So even though your first book doesn't hit, your first series or second series, just accept that it's a process, and accept that success will find you, and don't give up.
No, that's those great words of advice. Great words of advice. Well, Jonathan, it's been awesome talking to you. Before we kind of bug out, what's kind of on your agenda now? What are you working on?
Let's see. So we have the Archer's Rest Summit coming up in April. And then I had a video game company reach out to me for the Gateway to the Galaxy books. So a mobile app video game is being made for that. And then audiobooks are coming out. And then my first nonfiction book, Get It Done. It's called Get It Done, Hard-Hitting Motivation for Authors.
And there'll be a link for that in the show notes.
Awesome. I appreciate it, Joe. And that's been really cool just to be able to give back, because I think we're happiest, and I know you are too. You're happiest not only when you're doing well, but you see those people beside you who you've helped along the way, and they're doing well too.
Well, yeah, and kind of you'll get this. Is like, it's nice to see somebody else benefit from your scar tissue.
Yeah.
It's like, I did this wrong and I screwed this up. I can't get that time back, but like, learn, you're smart enough to learn from my mistakes. Right?
Yeah. You're talking to the guy right now. I was 5 years rolling around in the dark trying to figure something out. And it's only in the last 2 years. So if I can save anybody the time and effort that it took for me to learn those lessons, yeah, for sure.
Cool. Well, it's great talking to you. And am I going to be seeing you in Vegas?
Yeah. We'll be there. We'll see you in 3 weeks from now, 2.5 weeks, something like that.
Yeah. We'll see you there.
Cool. Thanks, Joe.
Thanks.